Hey basketball guys, we have news. Let's go to more news from the Golden State Warriors, but before that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Gary Payton too is a fan favorite, but unfortunately he has dealt with a lot of injuries and the Warriors have changed their roster and Payton has lost some of his starting spot and has been playing very few minutes. And it looks like his minutes will be even more limited for the rest of the season. And Gary Payton too is a good player and there are other teams interested in him and one of them is the Dallas Mavericks. Gary Payton too will likely leave the Warriors at the end of the season. Gary Payton loses space and should be traded at the end of the season, along with a few other players. Steve Kerr's specialty is playing in deep rotations for the Golden State Warriors all season long. For the rest of this season, Kerr will need to shorten his rotations. The Warriors' depth chart isn't as deep as it was after the Jimmy Butler trade, and Kerr is going to have to bench some players to increase the Warriors' chances at a playoff spot. These players could be affected by a reduced rotation for the Warriors, who are chasing a playoff spot in the Western Conference and therefore needing to enter almost every game as a team that needs to win. Let's take a look at the players who should be little used for the remainder of the season. Gary Payton too was an essential piece of the Warriors' rotation during their 2022 championship run, with his on-ball defense instrumental in guarding players like Ja Morant and Luka Doncic on their way through the Western Conference playoffs. The reality is that right now, he simply doesn't have the same vigor on that end of the court. A perfect example was when Kyrie Irving torched the Warriors for 42 points before the All-Star break. Payton simply can't lock down elite scoring guards the way he could a few years ago, while shooting 23.6% from the three-point line doesn't help his case either. It might be time to leave the fan favorite behind. Payton should only play spot minutes as needed. Other players will also be affected. Pat Spencer, Gue Santos and Tracy Jackson-Davis have had solid moments this season. Their stories alone become a cheerleader for them to succeed so easily. However, your obtained rotation minutes time must come to an end. Spencer and Jackson-Davis just aren't bringing enough to the table early, and Santos still feels very raw. None bring enough on the defensive end either, showing that his minutes should be limited going forward. An ideal playoff rotation will be with Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Kevin Looney, Buddy Hield, Brandon Podziemski, and Moses Moody expected to be the core going forward. They all defend themselves and have enough offensive firepower to match most of the time. Jimmy Butler has the Golden State Warriors playing like a championship contender. It may be time to pay attention to the Golden State Warriors. With the addition of Jimmy Butler, the Golden State Warriors are playing a championship contender once again. Many across the league viewed the Golden State Warriors trading for Jimmy Butler as one of the riskiest moves at the NBA trade deadline. However, the early indications that it could be remembered as arguably the best move of the trade deadline. It may only be 5 games that Jimmy has played with the Warriors, but his presence is already being felt. With how the Warriors have looked with Jimmy in the lineup, there's a strong argument to be made that the team is playing like a championship contender once again. In the 5 games that Jimmy has suited up for the Warriors, the team is 4-1 and has been quite impressive on both ends of the floor. During that span, the Warriors have the 6th best offensive rating, the 5th best defensive rating, and the 6th best net rating in the league. Perhaps most importantly, the Warriors are passing the eye test. With a quality supporting star next to Steph Curry, it's impossible to not consider Golden State, at the very least, a dark horse contender in the Western Conference as the final push toward the postseason arrives. Seeding can make or break the Warriors' championship chances. The Warriors have been so impressive since the move for Jimmy that it makes you think that perhaps Draymond Green wasn't that crazy after he declared on All-Star Weekend that the team was going to win the title this season. It's still a considerably unpopular take, but maybe he knew something that we didn't. There's just one factor that the Warriors must consider even as they begin to hit their stride as a team this season. It's the fact that seeding could end up making or breaking their chances of making a deep playoff run. Especially in the West, the Warriors need to find a way to break out of the 7th or 8th seed. Could the Warriors potentially take down the Oklahoma City Thunder or Denver Nuggets in a first-round playoff series? Sure, I suppose it's possible, especially with how well the team has been playing of late. However, that's not necessarily something the Warriors should be looking for. If Golden State can climb into the 6th seed to avoid those two powerhouses in the first round of the playoffs, that's exactly what should be the goal for the team heading down the stretch. That would require the Warriors to make up 3 games between now and the end of the season. That's not unlikely, but the Warriors don't have much room for error. That may not be a problem with the way the Warriors have looked of late. For the first time since winning the title back in 2022, the Warriors are playing like a championship contender once again. It's the Jimmy effect. The Warriors' lineup change has them back in playoff contention. The Golden State Warriors are 4-1 since acquiring Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline. They've looked drastically improved on both sides of the floor. Their intensity on defense has been a welcomed addition after months of stagnation and struggle. In recent games, Steve Kerr has used an undersized lineup of Stephen Curry, Brandon Podziemski, Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody and Draymond Green. The versatility of that lineup and style of play have been notable. Speaking to the media following the Warriors' 132-108 win over the Sacramento Kings, Kerr admitted that he plans to keep the current lineup for the foreseeable future. "I imagine we will stay with this lineup," Kerr told reporters. "I hope so. Because we've had a million different starting lineups this year. It'd be really nice to stick with this for the rest of the season and keep building continuity with our lineups." Podziemski, Butler and Green are all tenacious defenders. They have enough size and strength to guard multiple positions, and they thrive when working at the point of attack. They give Golden State a defensive spine to rely on. Importantly, they also allow the Warriors to play at a high tempo without trading away playmaking or scoring. Golden State has clawed its way back into the playoff picture. Kerr's team currently sits 9th in the Western Conference, just 2.5 games behind the LA Clippers in the 6th seed. With a newfound intensity, offensive fluidity, and Butler's two-way presence, there's a legitimate chance the Warriors could avoid the play-in tournament and automatically qualify for the playoffs. Yes, Kerr's new lineup lacks size. But the fight in the dog is there for all to see. If Jonathan Kuminga can make the most of a bench role and the roster remains healthy. How Moody's arduous journey led to established Warriors starter role. Midnight. Distance from the far end of the Warriors bench to the starting lineup is about 15 feet. For reasons mostly beyond his control, Moses Moody needed more than 3 years to navigate that distance. Now that he is there, Moody is making a strong case to stay put. Moody made 6 starts in 54 games before being elevated last week. In 2 starts in his new role as a 6'5", 210-pound power forward, he's averaging 16 points on 12 of 20 shooting from the field, including 6 of 12 from distance. He's up to 8 starts this season and the Warriors won all 8 games. But that's not why Moody is in the starting lineup with Stephen Curry, Brandon Podziemski, Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. Moody is starting because he performed well after receiving consistent playing time within the rotation operated by coach Steve Kerr. And because he and the Warriors are thriving, both getting a strong boost from Butler. "Just the confidence that's coming from consistent playing time and minutes," Kerr said late Friday night. "And he's a good fit playing next to BP, Steph and Jimmy. Those guys are all playmakers, with Draymond. And he can play the role that I think he's most comfortable in, which is space the floor, let it fly when he's open, play hard and compete." Moses is in a really good place and has really established himself as a starter with this group. The word established could not be attached to Moody during his first 3 seasons. Selected number 14 overall as the second of Golden State's two first-round selections in the 2021 NBA Draft, Moody's minutes came and went like rainbows. You never knew when he'd be seen, and he never knew when he'd appear. He made 23 starts in his first 3 seasons and generally performed well. He sometimes would languish on the bench for several games, a spectator with a courtside seat. The inconsistency of his playing time spawned a subculture within Dub Nation that has spent a couple years pleading for more Moody. And now they're getting it because it's working. "I've been playing a lot more," Moody said Saturday after a light practice. "I've been in some hard situations my first couple years in the league where it's like playing, you might come out and coach would tell me that I'm not doing anything wrong. It's nothing to do with me. But I'm playing 15 minutes a game, get in for that long and miss 2 shots, and that's all you get." Not complaining about the situation, because it has been what it is. It's not anybody's fault. With the lineups and teams that we had, there wasn't much opportunity on the floor and I just kind of have to deal with it. Given that that's been the situation for a lot of time, being able to play consistent minutes is more comfortable to me. That's what I'm used to doing for as long as I played basketball before being in the NBA. Moody is ideal in at least one significant way in Kerr's system. He's a prototypical positionless player, capable of defending at least 3 positions on one end and spreading the floor on the other. He's shooting 38.4% beyond the arc, which is essential in an offense featuring interior performers Butler and Green. Moody's last game, Friday in Sacramento, was one of the best in his career. He scored 22 points, tying Buddy Hield for team high. Both were 8 of 11 from the field, including 5 of 8 beyond the arc. Such efficiency is not sustainable, but it indicates what's possible with the open shots created by Curry's gravity, Green passing from the top of the arc and Butler operating out of the mid-post. "The player that I've been able to be, lately, is the player that I am," Moody said. "Just being able to have more time to showcase that and get a groove and fall into that role, that's been fun. Being able to play basketball the way I always have." At 6'5", Moody is about 4 inches shorter than a typical NBA power forward, but it's the average height of Golden State's starting lineup. It's irrelevant, so far, and there is no doubt Moody will do all he can to keep it that way.